Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain? Who could complain on a day like today? Don't know why, but I got nothing coming in from comments. So I gotta wait a second. I gotta wait. I gotta see what people are saying. I'll go over on this device and see what I can catch from y'all. Yeah, that's why we're late. There was a bit of a connection issue this morning. So just give me a second here. I don't know why, but it looks like there's an audience. So it looks like there's real people coming in the room. Looks like we're going to be all right. Let me see what I got. All right. Well, we got a Daniel pre-show hello. We got my daily hit of heightened awareness from CB. Excellent. Good morning, pre-show gang. Hassan says, good morning. Edwin says, ready for some space drops. We love the space drops. David says, next 12 months will be epic. Indeed, indeed. Gene says, good morning, fellow Bitcoin state citizens. Hope you're all doing well. We are indeed Bitcoin state citizens. Let me find out why my chat is being so difficult. I'll reload it. It said my connection was fast. It said we're coming through, but it looks like the chat is just completely off. Who knows? Bitcoin Deb says, good morning. Let's get unstoppable. Bitcoiner says, good morning. Sun's up in Florida. Bitcoin 2. We're doing well. We're doing well. So it looks like the comments are just completely broken today. So I'm going to have to do it from this device. I'm getting nothing. I'm getting nothing at all. I'm getting zero. All right. I'll come back to that. Let's just acknowledge we got a major sunrise on our hands, right? We got no problem with the Sunrise Tech. Sunrise Tech fully operational. And Bitcoin's running. We're doing great, everyone. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Let me just see one more time what's going on with the Rumble folks. Make sure that connection got through. Things are a little weird this morning. Don't know why. Don't know why. Yeah, zero comments. Unreal. Unbelievable. Why can't anything work? All right, French fry. Bring it, break it, pump it up. We love it. Don Bollee says hello. Moran says freedom freaks. Sluggo, good afternoon. Drew, when you know the truth makes you a soldier. Indeed, Drew. That's a great way of putting it. Yo-Yo Breakup Kuru CB Van says, I can see you perfectly, Lance says, excellent. Remind people that you have your own channel account, BTC. Indeed, please, everyone on the Bitcoin Magazine Rumble channel, come on over to the Account BTC Rumble channel. That's the only place I actually read the comments from. Too many comments. And even when this thing works and I get YouTube comments, the problem is I don't get the Rumble one. So I have to go over to Rumble and bring them in. I might go back to the Rumble Studios. I actually like their interface for the comments a little better, but that's boring stuff that you'll learn another time. You're not here for my production mechanics. You're here for the fakest news I can find. Did I find some good fake news over the weekend? You know I did. You know I did. Now, we like to start with Canada because it's filled with morons and NPCs and idiots. So it's just the way we have to do it, right? It is the supply that comes out of Canada of fake news in Moscow time is... it's just great, right? Here we go. This comes from the National Post. Toronto's overlords pondering implementation of a rain tax. Yes. The city of Toronto plans to consult with water users in April about taxing based on the amount of hard surfaces on a property. Do it. Please, Toronto, do this. You must do it. We need a rain tax in Toronto. And remember, all those water users. Are you a water user? The water users in Toronto are down bad. The water users. Be careful, everyone. Don't be a water user if you don't want to pay taxes. This one's pretty good. The LGBTQ plus 2SLA, the whole thing. Well, they might change it, right? LBT tree, LB tree, LGB tree. Other people are saying we don't know what the new thing is going to be, but it's called ecosexuality. It's the latest sexual orientation that means people are turned on by nature. Oh, there you go, guys. Go bang a tree hole. Oh, this one's great. So Biden and Obama and Nancy Pelosi did this really hilarious video this weekend for the campaign. And you had Obama standing by Biden and everything. And everything about it was weird. The colors, everything was crazy about it. But Biden actually says this. The guy doesn't stop lying. He says, Remember, during the pandemic, Donald Trump told us to inject ourselves with bleach. Inject yourself with bleach, everyone. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, here's a great one. Biden is building a superstructure to stop Trump. It's Trump from stealing the election. Trump and his MAGA allies have been working for years to pre-rig the 2024 election. Here's how Team Biden is planning to fight them. Pre-rig. Oh, that's great. Okay, this one's awesome. You know, there's been some violence on the New York City subway, right? There's been some violence. There's been some trouble. It's been a bit dangerous to get on the New York City subway. The New York Times runs this article. Public transportation is not necessarily more dangerous than other settings, experts say. But there are some ways they recommend to get out of a risky situation. Here's what you should do if violence breaks out on your train or bus. Here's what you should do. And they actually come out and said, seeking help from bystanders, right? There's a section, seeking help from bystanders. What if you are being harassed and no one is helping you, they ask. Sometimes people don't want to step up to help because they believe others will. That's why. Says Chandra Bhatt. Chandra Bhatt is one of the experts they consulted. She's an expert who is president of the Transportation Development Institution of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Now, this is a recycled Moscow time from last week, but we gotta put them next to each other because they deserve to be together. Right? What do you do on a train if it's violence, right? This is just in from last week. ABC News. Daniel Penny, the former Marine who choked a homeless man to death last May in New York subway car, will stand trial. That's not funny. That's not funny. Don't laugh at that. It's not funny. Don't you dare laugh at Daniel Penny and all the trouble that the New York Times is going through to make the subway appear safe. It's not funny. All right. This one also not funny. The Princess of Wales reveals diagnosis. Doctors warn of mysterious cancer epidemic. It's mysterious, everyone. We don't know why. We don't know why. This one's good. The Washington Post. Women are getting off birth control amid misinformation explosion. It's a misinformation explosion, everyone. It's coming at us from every direction. Misinformation explosions. We'll talk about COVID in 1 second again. I forgot these two, though. These are from the horrific attack that happened in Moscow this weekend and the hypersonic missiles that are flying the other way this morning. So the Taliban came out and issued the following statement about ISIS. The Taliban, they said, we condemn in the strongest terms the recent terrorist attack in Moscow and considered it a blatant violation of all human standards. That's what they said. What did the good guys in America and Ukraine say? Well, not quite as good, not quite as nice. Good Morning Britain says, China, Russia, and Iran are reportedly behind the spread of conspiracy theories, slurs, and rumors about the Princess of Wales. Senior government figures are said to believe that the states deliberately peddled lies on social media in a bid to destabilize society. I had the wrong one in the wrong order. Sorry about that. Anyway, I forgot to get the one that I wanted. But you get it. You get it. You get it. All right. Finally, the last one we have. This comes from the AF Post. FDA admits COVID vaccinations lead to significantly elevated risks of seizures among toddlers. Whoops. Whoopsie. Whoopsie daisy. Too bad. All right. Now we're going to talk about the actual news for the day. Pardon me. We get something called Sahara dust here, which is the Sahara blows over its dust. So sometimes it can give me a little bit of itchy eyes in the morning. That happens. All right. So we have a, let's say start with a prediction, right? Let's start with a prediction. This comes from Oilfield Rando. Now, what he's seeing here is the persuasion and seeding of the narrative around COVID stuff and whatever else, inflation, right? So here's a either a low IQ operative or a real person. His name is John Favreau. And this is what he's saying about COVID. I thought for a while that an underrated reason for voter discontent right now, so that this is all the people trying to explain why Biden isn't doing so well, right? So it's got to be all these other reasons. So he's saying that we're all dealing with a kind of pandemic PTSD. He calls it a pandemic PTSD. So Oilfield Rando says, pandemic PTSD is my new favorite narrative. Nope, it's not everybody getting ravaged by their grocery shopping. Nope, not everybody taking on 30% APR credit card debt to pay the bills. It's just pandemic PTSD. Amazing. And he says, once you see coordinated news narratives, you can't unsee them. They are trolling out the pandemic PTSD narrative because the people are just too stupid to realize how great the economy is. Narrative failed spectacularly. This one will too, because nobody cares about COVID. And indeed, so Oilfield Rando is here sort of vaccinating us from any arguments about PTSD from COVID, right? So that's one of the things we can do as independent media, independent content creators, whatever you want to say, right? People who don't work for legacy media within the corporate hierarchy and the corporate structure, we're free to immunize people from the types of brainwashing that would be around, right? So that wasn't the case really when the pandemic happened, because they were able to really do a kind of choke point on the news. They were able to censor all kinds of stuff. And remember, the two most censored events in US history are COVID and the 2020 election, right? They were sort of censored in combination, in coordination. And it really did create a kind of situation where you had an equal and opposite reaction. You had people who would never trust anything that comes out of these media entities again, because they could see exactly as Oilfield Rando says here, the coordinated news narratives. Once you see the coordination, it becomes nearly impossible to unsee it, right? And indeed, we saw a bit of that this weekend where we had Bill Maher, right? Bill Maher, I think, I continue to have confidence that he's one of the few libtards that can actually learn something and see through a big bit of the fog of war. And he had Kara Swisher. Kara was on the show this week. And what did I see on the Kara Swisher thing with Bill Maher? It looks like she's just got the actual COVID PTSD that people are talking about. But the COVID PTSD is completely different than what the John Favreau's of the world were trying to sell, right? And it's not exactly the type of COVID PTSD that Oilfield Rando was inoculating us around, right? That was sort of us being blocked by any of these new nudges and persuasions that might come in. But in this case, we actually have examples of people who have been ingesting and digesting too much fake news. And we actually see there is such a thing as COVID PTSD. It's just different than they think. It's for people like Kara Swisher, who I only see mental illness now. There isn't really like an opinion that she has. It's just a mentally distressed psychopath trying to push off their ideas and worldview as intelligent, when really what we're seeing is someone who's been completely deteriorated intellectually and mentally. So Kara Swisher, now she's become one of the great mind readers of the world, right? She's just a total mind reader now. So Bill Maher and her were talking about Elon Musk, right? And Bill Maher said he's a complicated guy. And her answer, he's not complicated, he's a jerk. He's just a jerk, right? He's just a jerk. He's just a jerk, right? And then you could see her angry face, right? It's almost impossible to believe she was ever taken seriously. I booked her for a show once years ago with Glenn Greenwald as well. So anyway, but mentally ill person. So she says, Bill Maher says, I can easily prove he's a complicated guy, because yesterday I saw on the news somebody who was paralyzed, who was giddy with happiness because he was being able to play video games with his mind. That came from Neuralink. That's an Elon Musk company. Indeed, they go on to talk about, and Bill Maher actually did an amazing thing on racial pandering. He did his whole monologue on it, how it's going to do nothing but hurt the Democrat Party. Hold on, I got to see no, this is bothering me. I got to shut the chat off completely because it's just spinning and I'm not getting any chat at all. So this one's going to have to be a little different, guys. Normally, I would love to take your chat stuff in real time, but it's not going to be possible. Let me see what I get from here, just so I can get a bit of interaction here with you guys. So I'm going to look at it up from here, and I should be able to get some of this stuff. Okay, there we go. So there is a type of PTSD out there, but it is from people who are consuming this type of media. It's from people like Kara Swisher, who really do have a mental illness that came about from whatever it was that happened during COVID, whatever mind virus was able to spread when the news became as fake as it did during COVID has created this situation, right? And that's why this obsession with race and all this other stuff has sort of taken up the vacuum that was left. So Indeed, we really are in a war against these legacy media versus the independent content creators. And Balaji had another post on it, and you can really use that to contrast what's going on. Kara Swisher this weekend, I think, was just a perfect example of seeing the devastating psychological effects that came from the massive amounts of gaslighting and brainwashing and censorship that happened between 2020 and 2022. So here you go. Balaji says, individuals over institutions. Old money gets their long posts. So, and if you didn't know, Kara Swisher writes for the New York Times, right? You got to know that. Old money gets their long posts heard by owning legacy media. Think of New York Times as the Ox Sulzberg Group blog, and you won't be far off. New money gets their long posts heard by posting on social media. Think of Twitter as Elon's New York Times, and you won't be far off. I think the confusing part is that people see new money posting online as individuals just like them and think this is somehow vanity or a waste of time. Then they pick up the New York Times and read another Ox Sulzberg employee covering up for the latest Ukrainian Holodomor for profit. And they think this is hard-hitting journalism. At least that's how it used to work. Now social media has flipped legacy media. Legacy media is in steep decline, and new money is contesting old money for narrative dominance. Why? Well, we all learn what happened when you let genuinely evil people like the Ox Sulzberg influence the narrative. You get the Iraq War, so they can sell more papers. You get the BLM riots, so you can earn more subscriptions. You get them monetizing yet another episode where millions of Russians and Ukrainians kill each other, and you get total internet censorship in the name of democracy, which also coincidentally protects their corporate monopoly. Or you get social media. You get updates on new technologies, from rocket ships to robots to regenerative medicine. You get your own voice, and you get new money posting alongside you on essentially the same terms. You can reply, you can disagree, you can yell at the billionaires, and if you're really ambitious, you can even become one. So that's what this is all about. It's not weird for literal billionaires to do media. Indeed, it's happened for decades. What's unusual about this moment is the media battle between old money nepotists and new money technologists. If old money wins, we get wars. If new money wins, we get Mars. I think we can win, but you'll need to you need your very own long post too. That's why I'll be publishing the Bitcoiner's Guide to the 2024 US elections on the articles part of Twitter X. So there'll be a PDF that'll be available as well, but I will give this a shot on the articles thing. So share widely. Now, the formula that I've come up with. So I've got the people, I've got the policy. So that's all kind of the knowledge you need to be on top of the subject. Then I get into the actual prompts. And the way that I've designed the book is that I've got the people, the policies, but then the prompts. And then the prompts are really two-pronged, right? I've got the first prompt. So of course, we're dealing with NPCs when we're trying to influence the election, right? As Bitcoiners and then the non-Bitcoiners that have political opinions, they aren't really political opinions. You understand that. It's not, so there's no arguing. Right? It's just like the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. There's not going to be any argument there. There's not going to be like, this is what you tell a NPC and you'll be right. Rightness is not the objective here. The objective is to wake them up. I don't care about the rightness thing, right? That doesn't work, right? You can't use logic on an NPC. They've been hypnotized. How do you break the hypnosis? So it starts, in my case, I'll use these super prompts, right? So the super prompt is really usually a way to culture jam or to shock them out of their worldview. It causes cognitive dissonance. So, for example, when we talk about elections, there'll be plenty of times when I say, for real, if you embrace accelerationism in the book, Joe Biden is the best candidate Bitcoiners can hope for because his mind is so weak. We can't actually believe he's the leader of the free world. Like his inability to be successful stewarding the US dollar is really a great argument for Bitcoin. So I've said before, even though it's not true, I know I've seen some people think it's true. I like to say about the 2020 election that I voted for Biden 5 times, right? It's not true. I could have. There'd be nothing stopping me from having voted for Biden 5 times. I received 5 ballots at my address. There wasn't a single eligible voter in my household. And it would have been nothing for me to, go to my neighbor and say, hey, neighbor, you mind if I vote for you today? It could have been that easy, really that easy. So that's why I would always say, especially to Democrats, no, I voted for Biden 5 times. And that sort of cognitive dissonance can actually force this little opening into their brain. Now, the way I set up my book is once the opening is there, you have to be around to guide them. And the way you guide them at that point is to deploy some Bitcoin Memetic payload, right? So if their mind is open, you can actually target different Bitcoin memes that pack so much punch, that pack so much information in them, that can either be fear-inducing or they can help you choose rich. You know, the guy going viral, the choose rich guy, right? So once you create the cognitive dissonance, once you pry open a little crack in their mental armor, you can start deploying memetic payload into that. And if you get it in there enough times, they will actually change their worldview. So it's a combination. We treat it exactly like AI, right? The way we use AI is exactly how we should reprogram these NPCs, these people who don't understand Bitcoin. Now, to get more of a handle over the NPC question, you know, I've detailed it all in the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, how Bitcoin and fiat money and the sorcery of it have created these NPCs, disconnected people from reality in many cases. So the super prompt is to cause the cognitive dissonance, which opens their mind. Then you can inject a Bitcoin meme as another prompt. And generally you can wake people up with that, right? It's a 1-2 punch. And I think it works, right? Because the reason it works, sorry guys, they're cleaning a boat over there. Should be over in a second. I don't know if you can hear that, but it should be done in a second. Now, the reason why a lot of this stuff works and the reason why the super prompts that I have for these NPCs, I think are well designed, is because they actually do prey on people's fears, right? Fears, visual things are much more persuasive than the arguments of Kara Swisher, right? The ability of Kara Swisher to inject her convoluted thinking into your brain can't compete with your own personal safety, your own personal security, or your own personal wealth, right? Being poor is a very scary thing for most Americans. It's the worst, right? If you want to start a fight in America, you prey on Americans' fears of poverty, right? You call someone a loser, and that's an insult in America more than in other places, right? That's enough to get violence going in America because you're preying on the subconscious American fear of poverty, right? It's a big deal. Let me just make sure this thing is not so loud. Come on. Let me get the comments, live chat. There we go. So I need to read your book. New book comes out March 29th. Have I missed a thing, Bitcoin Deb? Yeah. Short freezes on YouTube's. Yikes. Jeez. Bad luck this morning, guys. I've had a million technical problems this morning, guys. It's really annoying. Like, I hate the technical production. I fucking hate it. I hate it. I got to get at some contained studio at some point in my life with all the things that I need. All right. So, let me see where I am here. So basically, the super prompts, I think anyway, can shake people out of their reverie, can shake people out of their how the brainwashing functions. So really it becomes an arms race. It becomes our ability to create cognitive dissonance and guide those people using all kinds of Bitcoin memes. And by Bitcoin memes, I mean the poors have fun staying poor, 21 million, right? The fixed amount, huge and powerful Bitcoin meme. Especially don't trust, verify. So Bitcoiners are actually armed with an incredible arsenal of memes that are way more powerful and way more persuasive than anything you're going to get out of the New York Times and a long Kara Swisher essay, right? The Kara Swisher essays don't have the punch they used to have. So, and then also the consequences of the American decisions of the past years are starting to become obvious to most people. And poverty, the choose rich meme versus have fun staying poor, they're kind of the same side, right? They're the same meme. Have fun staying poor, or we call them the poors, or the choose rich fella, is starting to become more and more prevalent. So Balaji had another long thread, and it was related to China. Now, there was a video that went viral over the weekend, and it was a guy named Molson Hart who shared it. And it says the 7 major ways China has changed between 2019 and 2024. So I haven't been to China in a few years. I'll be headed over there shortly. But of course, I've lived in Asia many times in my life, right? So just for new people here, I lived in South Korea between 2002 and 2004. Then I went back in 2008 and 2009, where I lived half in Japan and half in Korea again. In those years, I spent a lot of time, traveling around the area. So that was pre-Bitcoin. I was in Japan when Bitcoin was created. Now, I went back when I worked with CoinDesk, and we started creating our CoinDesk business entities in Japan and South Korea. Partly because of me, we chose those two jurisdictions as our first foreign language outlets. Like, we didn't do Spanish first or anything like that. We went right over there because the interest in Korea and Japan was just higher. We had a higher readership base. It was easier to experiment with the translation. So we created CoinDesk Korea in 2017, CoinDesk Japan in 2018, both still operating today, both very successful. I took a long trip to China in 2016 related to Bitcoin. I took another long trip in 2018 to the region. I took another trip in 2019 to the region. Each of these times sort of a month long. 2019, I went a few times for that long. So I have experience over there. I kind of know what the deal is in China. Jeez, this is loud. Just a second. All right. So the way he described Molson Heart, the 7 major changes were the following. And these were pretty interesting and rung true to me, or at least were a big flag to me, right? So first of all, one of the biggest ones is that China has become Japanified, that it's become civilized, for lack of a better word. Now, I'll tell you, the things that I experienced in my life in China when it comes to that, like, people spitting on the ground, young men pushing old ladies out of the way as they get on the subway, because when the subway doors open, it's a free-for-all and it's very uncivilized. I had a friend who would make a habit of body checking people on the street to see if they would react. He would use a hockey player, and he would do the hip check, right? He'd hip check people like into a wall just to see if they would react, right? Now, he very uncivilized guy, but it was funny. He would just go bang, right? It's a hockey move. You smash someone against the boards. So he would hip check these people, and they would just keep going. They were just so used to being hit, and he would time them. Like, he'd rock people, right? And the experiment was, will they ever react? They never did. They just would keep walking. Like, that's how uncivilized it was, right? Now, I'm not arguing my friend was civilized. Definitely not civilized, right? So he was sort of culture jamming, for lack of a better word, the lack of civility, and having a little fun with it. But indeed, you'd see these things. There were scams everywhere. Now, there's still scammers, he says, everywhere. People trying to sell him a watch or a thing. But just as an example, when I went to Shanghai in 2016, this is the kind of stuff people would try and get away with, right? We rented on Airbnb, because Airbnb was still operating then. We rented a nice apartment in Shanghai. 2 bedrooms, my wife and I, and wanted the whole space. I needed a room to work in, all that stuff. And so we get this place. We get there, and you can be sure when you rent on Airbnb if you get the entire place or you share the house. I would never search a shared the house situation. So I get this place, and I come in, and the owner is just there, right? So he checks us in as normal, right? That's all normal. But then he's not leaving. And I'm like, what? Why is he hanging out? And then he goes, oh, someone else is coming to stay here now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Someone else is coming to stay here. And then I showed him, I was like, we rented the whole place. He's like, oh. So right away, it's like, we had to go stay in a hotel, right? Just give me my money back. It was a beautiful place in the French concession. So like an old European apartment. It was gorgeous. I wish I could have stayed there, but I couldn't. Like, I'm not going to leave my wife with strangers when I'm out at work all day and around town. So that was not happening, right? But that like a brain dead scam. Like, who could get away with that? Like, what were you expecting? That I wasn't going to say something, right? Just absolutely scammy, brain dead. So you tell Airbnb, and Airbnb sees, right, that you booked an entire place, but then someone comes in, and so it's not the case, right? Let me just see if this noise is killing y'all. Your background is not coming through. Good. No background noise. Excellent. Can't hear the background noise. Clean boat, clean keys. Yeah. Good. I'm glad it's not coming through. It's the pressure hose. There's a pressure hose going off over there. I can't wait for it to end. So So he goes on, he explains a few more things. He starts talking about but his major takeaway was the following. So his major takeaway, he says, not only have they become more civilized than China over the past few years, and I guess automation is everywhere now as well. He went to some factories entirely robotic now. Robots are everywhere. The electric cars, which I already saw in Shanghai years ago. So the air is clean. He said they cleaned up all the air. Shanghai was already the case. That's been going on for a while. It's where I first had my idea about the Nakamoto Trail. I actually got that idea in Shanghai when I saw all the electrification of the bikes at the time. It wasn't as many cars. It was bicycles and three-wheelers and whatever, but they had no more two-stroke engines. They had no more mopeds. They had no more scooters, none of that. And that's the thing I can't stand about going to Southeast Asia, Vietnam, or Thailand. I just get so annoyed by the two-stroke engines. It's why people who call Singapore boring all the time, you don't know what it's like to be stuck in these towns in Asia and the noise and just the chaos, right? So when you get to Singapore, you're like, finally, like quiet. I can get some quiet. There's no traffic. There's no two-stroke engines. There's none of that stuff. So they got that they don't have that, right? So already when I went to Shanghai, I was amazed by the electric bikes everywhere. It was so peaceful and quiet. You'd come to a stop sign and it would be like 100 electric bikes, and then they would take up and go right away after. Just really neat stuff. So he said they cleaned up the air because of that. He said they're even finding, like he says, okay, in America, we've got some Teslas, but not really much else electric. He goes, here, it's all the cars are electric, he said. And not only that, there are cars that are like 10,000 US dollars, and they're perfectly good cars. They look amazing. Not available to Americans, but widely available over there. Now, I've predicted for a long time that the cost of cars, when you electrify them, will make them much cheaper, just because it's far fewer parts. It's much easier to put together an electric car than it is to put together a US-made combustion engine car, because you don't have the coolant system, you don't have the same oil that has to pump through the cylinders. You don't have any of that stuff, right? Without combustion, you're dealing with a super simplified motor, right? You have a battery and a supercapacitor, and that charges the tires, and you go, right? Now, the Tesla has the magnets and all that stuff. It's a lot more complicated. But if you can deal with these solid-state batteries, which I am assuming some of the Chinese companies are doing, you can actually simplify by the amount of parts required in the car and reduce it greatly, which reduces the overall price. What we're actually paying for with the cars in America is the pension plan. It's the collective bargaining that comes around the car. We're paying for the people who made the cars 20 years ago. We're paying for all kinds of things you don't see. All kind of externalities that are just not obvious to us are not in the equation. That's why Morgan Stanley already in 2020 predicted that the cost of cars when they electrify will come way down, because it's just simpler to build. Now, I predict we'll actually have a cottage industry in cars again, where people just take the pieces and components to make a car, and they'll be like regional car makers again. There'll be bespoke cars that you can only get in one area, and it'll make things a lot more idiosyncratic and different and more interesting and more creative, right? I can see people putting like old type of Porsche shells, these beautiful old 1950s shells on newer electric vehicles, right? Just by combining the drivetrain and the parts, and you'll be able to get all that. Now I got a fucking bulldozer driving by me here. God damn it. I can't hear a thing. I don't know, guys. This is not going well for me. Fuck. All right. Hopefully it gets a little quieter for me in a second. So this guy did this big long thing, and in the end, his major takeaway was that China has gotten so much better the last time he was here, which was 2019. He says it's gotten so much better in the last 5 years. And he goes, and I contrast that with what I see in my own country in America and how much worse it's gotten. It's so much worse than it was. And he goes, those trends and those tendencies, he says, are they're very obvious to notice now, right? He says people feel a lot more harmonious there, a lot more civilized. He goes, you don't see foreigners around anymore. They're all packed up and gone. They're not around. Not that that was part of the civility, of course. But his explanation was that it's become so much better in China in the last 5 years. Now, he's not trying to place any, This is not an argument that, oh, the Chinese Communist Party is a good thing, right? He's not, I don't think he's making that argument. It's just a simple observation that what we have in America in the last 5 years is nothing but losing and poverty and mental illness and fighting. We've become way less civilized, if you haven't noticed, way less civilized. And that's a major problem, right? So Balaji also put on a long thread about China, and he was talking about what Noah, what's his name again? Noah Opinion, Noah Smith, right? Noah Smith. So Noah talking about the TikTok ban, and he's like, and he was bringing up the 3-body problem. By the way, I've booked, I don't know if you knew this, guys, but the 3-body problem has a pretty interesting connection to Bitcoin. So I've booked Ken Liu, who is the English translator of an English writer, and the English version of the 3-body problem is quite different than the Chinese version because Ken Liu's version starts in the Cultural Revolution in China. The original writer of the 3-body problem in China didn't want to do that because he was worried the government censors would stop him. So he hides the Cultural Revolution scene further in the story. Ken Liu fixed that because he didn't have to deal with the Chinese censors and started it with it. So No Opinion starts with that scene on the counter-revolutionaries. If you haven't seen the 3-body problem, I still haven't seen it. I'm going to watch it. But oh yeah, here's the connection. Ken Liu, the writer, was Jimmy Song's college roommate. Did you know that? Yeah, it's funny, huh? So I booked Ken Liu for years now because of 3-body problem, and he's a Bitcoiner. And Jimmy Song has described Ken Liu as the best coder he's ever known or lived with or whatever his metric was. But they're great friends. I booked them both for the 2018 consensus show, or maybe 2019. I booked them both. They spoke on stage together, Ken Liu and Jimmy Song. So college roommates, believe it or not, college roommates. The writer of the 3-body problem and Jimmy Song, college roommates. So Noah Smith was talking about that scene. He goes, this organization responsible for the 1970s atrocities depicted in this video is the same organization that now controls what your kids see on TikTok in 2024. Now, that's true in a sense. It's true in a sense, but Balaji sort of adds more nuance to it. And I think Balaji's right here, right? Now, again, do not take this as any endorsement from me. If that's what you're hearing, an endorsement of the CCP, you're hallucinating it, okay? I'm not endorsing the CCP in any way. This is just reality, right? So we're trying to describe reality here. So Balaji says the Chinese Nationalist Party. He goes, on one level, Noah's post is, of course, true. It's still the Chinese Communist Party. But on another level, the reverse is true. The party in control of China is better thought of as the Chinese Nationalist Party. And he goes, as a brief refresher, there are actually 3 groups of people who maintain China is still communist in the Maoist sense. He says the CCP itself, as you can see from the videos like this, official party propaganda maintains the illusion of continuity from Mao Zedong to Deng Xiaoping. But actually, what Deng did in 1978 was more like a capitalist coup. He jailed the Gang of Four, took power, and turned China towards the capitalist road. Obviously, the party doesn't want to valorize groups against the party, so it downplays the discontinuity. The Western left. So again, Balaji here is talking about who still says that it's Mao Zedong's China, right? The Western left. Many on the Western left cite China as actually existing communism. Some are hammer and sicklers who get taken in by the labels. Others are aligned against the US and support China for that reason. Still others look at the real distribution and state control of the CCP as the kind of communism they'd want in practice, even if it's really more like nationalism. Finally, smarter guys on the center left see the label of communism as a way to get dumber guys on the center right to support war with China. And finally, he says the Republicans. Quite a few Republicans speak unironically about the Chinese Communist Party. He wrote it funny, the Chinese Communist Party. These are the ones stuck in 1980s time warp who also think Russia is still on the left and the US as a whole is still on the right, right? Others on the Western right now know modern China is in a sense ultra-nationalist, but still find the label of communist rhetorically useful. Perhaps this is because even if even if it's nationalist, it's a rival nationalism. So any label that gets the base fired up is a good one. Anyway, the illusion that the same guys have been in charge of China continuously from 1949 to 2024 is one of the few things that the CCP plus large factions of Western left and right all subscribe to. It's meant to gloss over Deng's 1978 coup. But if you wanted the true flag of today's China, it's arguably the flag of the Chinese nationalist right, the Kuomintang, especially in communist colors, right? Guys, this is so loud, I don't know how much longer I can go. For me personally, I can't really hear myself think. So this is a problem. I don't think this happens often. I don't know why they're spraying this boat, but I'm not going to be able to continue much longer if this keeps up. I can't hear myself. It's very loud for me. Motherfuckers. All right, let me check your comments here. All good on my end. No, it sounds good. Yeah, noise on this planet is very bad. If anyone knows a place where the peace and quiet, please share. Well, UTXO, that's what we love about Japan. We love how quiet Japan is. Wild times down on the island. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They're just cleaning boats. I don't know if it's a Monday thing or whatever, but it's absolutely so loud. And it's the fucking two-stroke engines. I can't stand them. Can't stand them. Ay, ay, ay. Just give me a second here. I just want to see how much longer it might. I get it. What it is a motherfucker who owns his boat is about to take it out. And he's cleaning it before he goes in the fucking water like a retard. Fuck. Seed oil fucking red skin motherfucker. So, and you're not even fucking doing it anymore. All right. Super annoying. I don't even know where I am now. China, Noah Smith. All right. So I'll just keep reading Balaji's thing and I'll try and get back on my train of thought. So he says one way of seeing this is to understand the current status of Chiang Kai-shek in each country. So if you guys don't know who Chiang Kai-shek is, he was the sort of president of the Republic of China against whom Mao did the revolution. And Balaji will explain who he was here. He says, Chiang is the Chinese nationalist general who led the forces of the right against Mao in the Chinese Civil War. He was backstabbed by the Western left at a crucial moment, but managed to at least beat a tactical retreat to found what became Taiwan. Ironically, many Taiwanese don't like him today and are talking about taking down his statues. Why? This is a deep rabbit hole, but that's really a book in its own right. Suffice it to say that while he killed 1,000x fewer people during peacetime than Mao, Chiang did kill quite a few because he felt he was preventing scenes like that depicted in the three-body problem. After all, if you think war to stop communism is justified, then you think crackdowns to stop it are as well. Today, Taiwan is, however, more about bubble tea and semiconductors charitably, or soft wokeism uncharitably, than the kind of harsh kill-or-be-killed militaristic nationalism. And can you blame them? Meanwhile, mainland China has partially rehabilitated Chiang. He's now considered to have had his heart in the right place. After all, he put aside differences with Mao and fought for the Chinese people against the Japanese, and so on. There's a narrative that's a narrative of cross-straits unity and anti-Japanese sentiment, which the party supports. It's a nationalist message, and that's why you might think of them as the Chinese Nationalist Party. Postscript: Noah probably knows most of this history, and none of this is meant as a dunk. His tweet below is just a good jumping off point. So there you go. But now, again, go back to what that guy said, and indeed that China is becoming nationalistic. Think what you want about their government. It does look like, in a sense, they're interested in the wealth of their people. They're interested in preserving the wealth, in making sure the country is industrially capable, and that they make money and that things move forward. So the guy goes on to say that there's, Russians there all the time because Russia is sort of taking the place of the foreigners with whom they deal with. We in America continue to have this idea of China as like a sweatshop with cheap labor, and they throw all the cheap labor at everything. And he goes, no, now what you see are these beautiful factories with robots and automation everywhere, way more than you'll ever see in America. And he says it really looks like the future, and America looks like the past. And that was this guy's impression. Now, when we get back to this memetic idea of how to persuade people as Bitcoiners, and this idea of creating cognitive dissonance and injecting our memetic payload, such as have fun staying poor, or we call them poor, or don't trust verify, or choose rich, or any of the number of incredible memes that Bitcoiners understand. When we start using those as a visual persuasion, when we start actually having the capacity to break Americans free of their spellbound nature, of their comic book version of what's going on in China or anywhere else in the world, right? Americans, because of the brainwashing, have a comic book version of the world that has them at the top, right? It's like I said before, when I brought one of my friends to Singapore from New York, I've mentioned this many times, he says to me, my doctor, this is 2018, my doctor said I need to get shots. He was taking a direct flight from New York City to Singapore. He was not going to go to any other country. He was just going to be in Singapore and come back. And he says to me, my doctor thinks I need to get shots. And I said, bro, you take the New York subway every day, don't you? And he's like, yeah. And I said, you're not like going from the rich developed world to the third world or the developing world. You have it backwards. You have it backwards. You're going to the developed world. New York is not that compared to Singapore. It's not even close. Singapore is entirely civilized, so clean, so amazing. Right now, there's plenty I don't like about Singapore, right? There's tons of shit I don't like about it there. It gets boring after a while, but nevertheless, there's no incivility, right? There's all these great things that you've got there. New York City, rat-infested subway. I mean, what was the name of the baseball team that the Yankees use as their minor league team plays out of Staten Island, and they call them occasionally the Pizza Rats, because Pizza Rat was so famous in New York City. It was just a rat eating pizza, right? Just rat eating a slice of pizza. That was already a big meme back then. Pizza Rat, right? So our ability now as Bitcoiners to use fear and the reality of American poverty and the reality of Americans falling behind is going to help create that cognitive dissonance, because the brainwashing has made the false situation where America is somehow rich and somehow more successful and more developed and more civilized than the rest of the world. It's going to create that inflection point. It's going to create that opening, because it's not Bitcoiners who think America is great. Like, we're not under that illusion, right? It is the NPC Americans who have been hypnotized by watching mainstream media who are under that impression. He's still fucking going. Bro, your fucking boat isn't that big. And you're going in the goddamn water with it. Fuck. So here's what Scott Adams says about that. And this is I think our potential here, right? So he says, fear and visual persuasion are the most powerful tools of influence. That's why all the videos of squatters taking homes suggest Trump will win in a landslide. You can't top that for visual and scary. Trump is competing with a sitting government that is actively trying to hurt its own citizens in a variety of entirely obvious ways. You'd have to be in a coma to not pick up on the pattern. Some of them are. Anything could happen between now and Election Day, but if you straight line the current situation, Trump will have the largest landslide in American history. That's not a prediction, because we know there will be hoaxes coming. We might be in the middle of one, right? So Indeed, there are hoaxes coming. There's trouble on the horizon for sure. No one is going to let the situation play out as it is, I don't think. But the idea now that the American government is a predator, that it is the most dangerous thing in our lives, is a new thing in the American conversation that wasn't there before. And it completely flips our ability to persuade people because more and more people are going to see who the enemy is. Bitcoiners with our memes are going to be able to capture all of these people coming out of the cognitive dissonance that will be triggered from seeing these things in reality. Squatters in homes, the violence, the more killing, right? All the lies about Ukraine with the hypersonic missiles falling today in Kiev, very sad story, especially given all the stuff that happened this weekend. Do you think any American media outlet is going to be able to hypnotize the American public into saying, oh, it's okay that we don't have hypersonic weapons and Russians do? That's okay, right? No, it creates a situation of fear. Now, I don't know what weapons the Americans have. I have no idea, right? Maybe we have something way cooler and way better. I don't know. But the point is, you're going to be able to induce fear that the mainstream media can't assuage. They're not going to be able to convert the people who are falling into cognitive dissonance about the system they've been lied to about. They're not going to be able to turn that into new or retain Biden voters or retain Democrat subscribers or retain people who really want to perpetuate this mental illness and poverty and trouble. That's all gone, right? Now, we're going to see widespread cognitive dissonance in America from a variety of reasons. The JFK, RFK connection, who did that, the truths that come about because of that, right? You got the New York Post writing today a Jonathan Turley article. Biden and the party of democracy are terrified of third-party candidates in voter choice. So again, it's the effect of RFK on the election is going to expose the fear. And again, fear persuades better than anything. Not the fear that you have that you're sharing. That's not it, right? They're not going to be able to make Americans afraid of RFK. It's them who are afraid, right? And it might persuade them to do crazy stuff for sure. But they're not enough of them. It's just not enough, right? So the idea of moving beyond too big to rig, which is really what RFK offers here, right? RFK offers mathematically a situation where rigging can become a lot easier to detect, a lot easier to triangulate. When it's just two people, it becomes 1-to-1, right? If it's three, it becomes harder. Jeez. I hate this guy. Now he's cleaning his motor. His motor needs to be cleaned with a pressure washer. Put it in your face, bro. Fuck. All right, I gotta stop. I actually can't think. I can't read anything. I can't think. It's too loud. I can't do it. Show's over, guys. Let me see what your comments are saying. And this guy is driving me nuts. If this ever happens again, I gotta leave. Yeah, it's. Rakeman's not here. Bitcoin Graffiti. We're dealing with Power Washer God today. Power Washer, right? Bad day at the office, Nolan. Happens to us all. Yeah. Yeah. You're clear the whole time, but I understand the ability to hear yourself think. Yeah, I can't. I honestly can't keep my thoughts. It's very loud. Like he's not far from me with a pressure washer. He doesn't see me. He doesn't know I'm working here or anything like that. He's just an asshole over there. He's probably a nice guy. I don't know anything about him. But it's too much for me to think. I can't keep my thoughts in my head. It's just too loud. He's been doing it the whole fucking time too. So how long does it take to fucking power wash a small dinghy or a small fishing boat? I mean, it makes no sense. All right. Yeah. My son pressure washes every inch of his pickup truck. I'm cracking up. Thanks, pressure wash guy. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. Yeah. He's showing off his boating. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for understanding, everyone. I just can't keep my thoughts straight. I had a few more notes that I wanted to go over, but it's not going to happen. I don't hear the background noise. Yeah, interesting background, bro. Yeah. The wind is louder than your background. Yeah, I know, but it's not for me. I mean, it's really loud. Ay, 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 ay. All right. Where was I? Comments. See if I missed anything. I was going to talk about the Bukele gang violence stuff. I was going to talk about some 60-minute stuff. No, anyway, in the end, indeed, fear, the things to be afraid of are shifting in America, and that is going to create cognitive dissonance. That opening is an opening for us to deploy our prompts and our Bitcoin memes, and that should wake up more of these brain dead NPCs. And if we get enough of them, we'll have peace on Earth, exactly as Balaji has predicted. All right, everyone, signing off. Peace.